Velthar stood in the training room and watched the humans with disappointment in his eyes. They were small compared to his kind. Their arms looked weak. Their legs seemed too thin to carry heavy armor. After 3,000 years of military service across the galaxy, the Kryn warrior knew what real soldiers looked like. These humans were not it. The 5 humans stood in a line before him. Their leader was a quiet man named Day. He had calm eyes and spoke in a low voice. Next to him was a woman called Hana, who kept touching her weapon like it was a precious thing. A young male named Tay looked nervous and kept shifting his weight from one foot to the other. An older man named Wu said nothing at all, just stared ahead with a blank expression. The last one was a woman named Yuna who seemed more interested in her equipment than in Velthar. Velthar had trained many species, the Drexians with their thick shells, the Vrel with their 6 legs and speed, the Mantok with their rage and power. All of them were better than humans in some way. Humans had nothing special. They were just average at everything. He decided to start with basic drills. The humans moved through the exercises without complaint. They were not fast, but they were not slow either. They were not strong, but they managed the tasks. After 2 hours, Velthar could see sweat running down their faces. The Kryn did not sweat. They could train for 6 hours without rest. Humans needed breaks. During the rest period, something strange happened. The humans laughed. They made jokes about their mistakes. Tai said something that made Hana smile. Even Wu's face changed a little, though he did not laugh. Velthar did not understand. Training was serious. Combat was serious. Death was serious. Why were they laughing? Day noticed Velthar watching them. The human walked over and stood beside the tall alien warrior. "Something wrong?" Day asked. "You laughed during training," Velthar said. "Why?" Day looked at his team and then back at Velthar. "Because if we don't laugh now, we might not get another chance. War is hard enough. We take joy where we can find it." Velthar did not agree, but he said nothing. He had seen many species face death. None of them laughed about it. The next day, Velthar created a special test. It was a combat simulation that could not be won. He had used this test on every species he trained. The goal was to see how they handled impossible situations. Most species surrendered after a few minutes. Some fought until the simulation killed them all. Then they accepted defeat. The humans started the simulation. Within minutes, they were surrounded by enemy forces. Their ammunition was running low. Their position was bad. Any smart commander would surrender. Day did not surrender. "Hana, can you reach that building?" he asked, pointing at a structure across the battlefield. "Maybe," Hana said. "It will be close. Tay, Wu, you cover her. Yuna, I need you to jam their communications for 30 seconds. The team moved. It was not perfect. Tay got hit by simulated fire and went down, but Hana made it to the building. She started shooting from a better position. Wu dragged Tay to cover. Yuna's jamming worked for 20 seconds before failing. They still lost. The simulation ended with all of them marked as dead. But they had not given up. Velthar walked into the simulation room. The humans were sitting on the floor, breathing hard. They looked tired, but not defeated. "Why did you not surrender?" Velthar asked. Dai looked up at him. "Because that's not what we do. The test was impossible. You could not win." "Maybe not," Hana said, standing up. "But we learned something. That maintenance tunnel on the east side. If we had used that, could we have flanked them?" Velthar blinked. The tunnel was part of the simulation, but no species had ever noticed it. "Yes," he admitted, "but you would still have been outnumbered." "But we would have had a better chance," Yuna said. "Can we try again tomorrow?" Velthar did not know what to say. These humans had failed the test, but they wanted to try again. They were analyzing their mistakes instead of accepting defeat. This was new. That evening, Velthar sat in his quarters and wrote his report for the Galactic Coalition. He wrote that humans were determined but weak. They tried hard but lacked the physical strength for real combat. He recommended them for support roles only, not frontline soldiers. He was about to send the report when his communication panel blinked. A message from Coalition Command. There was an emergency. Raiders were attacking a science station on a moon called Talos 9. All available units needed to deploy immediately. Velthar stood and gathered his gear. His Kryn warriors were ready within minutes. As he walked to the transport bay, he saw the humans there too. They were loading their equipment onto a ship. "What are you doing?" Velthar asked Day. "We volunteered," Day said simply. "There are people who need help." "You are not ready for real combat." Day looked at him with those calm eyes. "Maybe not, but we're going anyway." Velthar wanted to argue, but there was no time. The transport ships were leaving. He boarded his ship with his Kryn warriors. The humans boarded theirs. As the ships flew through space toward Talos 9, Velthar watched the human ship on his monitor. He could see them through the windows. Tai was shaking. Wu sat very still. Hana was checking her weapon again and again. Yuna had her eyes closed, listening to something through earpieces. Day was writing in a book with an actual pen. They looked scared. They looked unprepared. They looked like they were going to die, but they were still going. Velthar felt something strange in his chest. It was not respect. Not yet. It was more like curiosity mixed with concern. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. He would find out which one soon enough. The transport ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Talos 9 appeared before them. The science station was under attack. Fires burned on the surface. Ships flew around shooting at each other. People were dying down there. Velthar checked his weapons one last time. He had fought in hundreds of battles. He was not afraid. But when he looked at the human ship again and saw those 5 small figures preparing to land, he felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt worried for someone other than himself. The landing was rough. The transport ships shook as they entered the atmosphere of Talos 9. Velthar could hear explosions in the distance. The science station was sending out emergency calls. 3 research teams were trapped inside. Raiders had broken through the outer walls and were killing everyone they found. Velthar gathered his 12 Kryn warriors. They were the best fighters in the sector, tall, strong, and trained for exactly this kind of mission. The plan was simple. The Kryn would attack the main raider force. The humans would rescue the trapped scientists. It seemed like a safe job for the new species. The ships landed in a dusty field near the station. Velthar's team moved out first, running toward the main entrance where most of the raiders were. He could hear gunfire and screams. His warriors formed up and pushed forward with practiced skill. Behind them, the human team went toward a side entrance. Velthar had a monitor on his wrist that showed video from their helmet cameras. He kept one eye on it while fighting. He wanted to see how they handled their first real battle. The Kryn met the raiders in a long hallway. The enemy was a species called the Velkesh. They were experienced fighters who made their living from violence. The battle was hard, but the Kryn were winning. Velthar shot 3 raiders himself. His warriors moved like a machine, covering each other and advancing step by step. Then Yuna's voice came through his earpiece. "We have contact. Multiple enemies. We have civilians with us. Engaging." Velthar looked at his monitor. His chest tightened. The humans were in a large room. At least 15 raiders were shooting at them. The humans had found 6 scientists and were trying to protect them. The raiders had better positions and more guns. The humans should have been dead already. But they were not. Day was moving forward, not backward. He drew the raiders' attention to himself while the others repositioned. Bullets hit the wall near his head, but he did not stop. He was shouting orders in a calm voice like he was discussing the weather. Hana was doing something impossible. She fired through a tiny gap in the wall that Velthar's computer had not even detected. A raider fell, then another. Her accuracy was perfect. Every shot hit exactly where she aimed. Tay, the young one who had been shaking on the ship, was dragging a wounded scientist across the open floor. Bullets flew past him. One hit his armor and he stumbled, but he did not let go of the scientist. He pulled the injured person to safety and immediately started treating the wound. Wu was not hiding at all. The old human walked forward like he was taking a morning stroll. He fired his weapon steadily. A raider shot him in the chest. The armor held. Wu did not even slow down. He shot that raider and kept walking. Yuna was working on a control panel while bullets hit the wall above her head. She got the room's emergency doors working. The scientists could escape through a side passage. Velthar's own battle was almost over. The Kryn had defeated the raiders in their sector. But he could not stop watching the human team. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. They should have retreated. They did not retreat. They held their ground until every scientist was safe. A plasma bolt hit Day in the shoulder. The wound was bad. Velthar saw blood on the camera feed. Any normal soldier would fall back to get medical help. Day switched his gun to his other hand and kept giving orders. His voice did not shake. His commands did not stop. Tay, get those civilians out. Hana, cover the east door. Wu, Yuna, we're going to push them back. They did. Somehow they pushed the raiders back. The enemy retreated first. 15 experienced Velkesh raiders ran away from 5 humans. When the battle ended, Velthar ran to find the human team. They were at the extraction point with all the rescued scientists. All 6 scientists were alive. Tay was treating Day's shoulder wound. The young medic had taken shrapnel in his leg, but was ignoring his own injury to help his commander. Velthar approached them slowly. They looked terrible. Day's armor was burned. Tay was bleeding. Wu had 3 impact marks on his chest plate, but Hana was smiling. Good work, everyone, she said, like they had just finished a training exercise. Velthar did not understand. They had almost died. They were wounded. How could she smile? The flight back to the main station took 2 hours. Velthar sat with his warriors on one side of the transport. The humans sat on the other side. The rescued scientists kept thanking them. Tay looked embarrassed by the attention. Wu said nothing, as usual. Yuna helped Day with his injured arm. Velthar could not stop thinking about what he had seen. The Kryn were trained to be fearless. They meditated to remove fear from their minds. Fear was weakness. A warrior who felt fear was not a true warrior. But Velthar had access to the human team's biological data from their suits. During the battle, their hearts had been racing. Their bodies had been producing stress chemicals. Every one of them had been terrified. Yet they advanced anyway. He stood and walked over to where Wu was sitting. The old human looked up at him with tired eyes. I saw your biological readings during the fight, Velthar said. You were afraid. Wu nodded slowly. Yes. But you walked forward. You did not take cover. That's the job, Wu said simply. I do not understand. The Kryn trained to remove fear. You felt fear but acted anyway. How? Wu was quiet for a moment. He looked at his teammates. Day was asleep, exhausted from blood loss and pain medication. Tay was finally letting Yuna treat his leg wound. Hana was cleaning her weapon with steady hands. We don't remove fear, Wu finally said. We carry it with us. Fear tells us we're in danger. It's useful information. The trick is not letting it make our decisions for us. But it must be harder to fight when you are afraid. Yes, Wu agreed. It is harder, but we do it anyway. Velthar returned to his seat. He opened his report file again. He read what he had written about humans being too weak for combat. It was wrong. He knew that now. but he did not know how to describe what he had seen. The Kryn were warriors. They were strong and skilled and fearless. They won battles through superior training and physical ability. The humans were something else. They were weak and small and terrified, but they won anyway. They won because they refused to stop, because they carried their fear and moved forward despite it, because when people needed help, they came running even if it meant they might die. Velthar deleted his report. He would write a new one. But first, he needed to understand more. He needed to see if what happened on Talos 9 was luck, or if it was something deeper, something that made humans different from every other species he had known. That night, as the transport ship flew through dark space, Velthar made a decision. He requested assignment to continue training with the human unit. Command approved it immediately. They wanted experienced warriors to assess the new species, but Velthar's reasons had changed. He was not assessing them anymore. He was trying to understand them, because for the first time in his long military career, he had seen soldiers who fought not because they were unafraid, but because they were afraid and did it anyway. And that scared him more than any enemy he had ever faced. 3 weeks after Talos 9, Coalition Command sent Velthar and his team on a new mission. An old warship had been found floating in dead space near the border. It belonged to a species called the Harken, who had died out centuries ago in a terrible war. Intelligence reports said the ship might have weapons technology inside. Velthar commanded 12 Kryn warriors for the mission. The human team had grown. Day was now a captain. His original team was there, plus 4 new humans. One was a big man named Jin, who carried heavy weapons. Another was a woman named Sue, who worked with explosives. The plan was standard. The Kryn would go first because they could see better in the dark and were stronger fighters. The humans would follow and secure each area after the Kryn cleared it. The warship was massive. It floated in space like a dead thing. There were no lights, no power. When they cut through the hull and entered, their flashlights showed empty corridors covered in dust. The air was thin but breathable. Everything was silent. Too silent. They moved deeper into the ship. Velthar's warriors walked in formation, weapons ready. The humans followed at a distance, checking each room they passed. The ship was like a maze. Corridors led to more corridors. Some doors were sealed. Others hung open to reveal dark rooms. After an hour, Yuna noticed something on her scanner. "I'm getting life signs. Multiple contacts. They're moving." Velthar stopped his team. "What kind of life signs?" "Unknown," Yuna said. "The readings are strange, not like any species in the database." They continued with more caution. The corridors got darker. Velthar's night vision showed shapes on the walls. Scratches, deep gouges in the metal. Something had been here. Something with claws. The attack came without warning. A creature dropped from a vent in the ceiling. It was fast and covered in hard plates like armor. Its arms ended in blade-like points. It landed on one of Velthar's warriors and drove those blades through his armor before anyone could react. The Kryn warrior died in seconds. Another creature came from a side passage, then another. They were nightmare things, created for war. The Harken had made them before their species died. These creatures had been waiting in the dark for centuries. Velthar's team formed a defensive circle. They shot at the creatures, but the armor plating was thick. 2 more Kryn went down. The creatures were too fast, too strong. Velthar made the tactical decision to retreat. They would return to the ship and call for more forces. Then Dai's voice cut through the chaos. "Negative! We have a mission! We adapt!" Velthar wanted to argue, but the humans were already moving. They did not panic. Hana was studying the creatures, looking for weak points. Yuna was working on getting some of the emergency lights working in the corridor. Jin positioned his heavy weapon at a choke point. "The armor is thick on top," Hana called out. "But underneath, near the joints, it's weaker. Aim there." The humans changed their fire pattern. Jin's heavy weapon punched through the creature's leg joint. It fell. Wu and Hana finished it with shots to the exposed areas. Su threw an explosive that did not kill a creature, but damaged its armor enough for others to finish it. They developed a system in 90 seconds. The Kryn would draw the creature's attention. The humans would exploit the weak points. It worked. They killed 3 more creatures and the rest retreated into the darkness. "We keep going," Day said. "Stay tight. Watch the vents and side passages." They pushed deeper. More creatures attacked. The Kryn were struggling. These things were designed to kill, and they were very good at it. One of Velthar's best warriors broke formation. Fear had finally cracked his training. He started to run. Tay, the young medic, grabbed the Kryn warrior. The human was half the alien's size, but he held on. "I know," Tay said to the terrified warrior. "I'm scared too. But we're not alone. Stay with us." The Kryn warrior steadied. He returned to formation. A human who admitted his own fear had just given courage to a Kryn. They found the source of the creatures, a large chamber deep in the ship. Dozens of them were there, maybe hundreds. It was a breeding nest. The mission was clear now. They had to destroy this ship. These creatures could not be allowed to spread. But the path to the reactor room went through the nest. It was suicide. "We'll create a distraction," Day said calmly. "Velthar, you take your team to the reactor. We'll keep them busy." Velthar's translator must have been broken. The human could not be suggesting what it sounded like. "That is a death sentence for the distraction team." Hana checked her ammunition count. "Probably, but somebody has to do it." Wu nodded agreement. "We'll buy you 10 minutes. Make them count." Velthar looked at these small, fragile beings. They were offering to die so his team could complete the mission. They said it calmly, like they were discussing lunch options. This was insane. "No," Velthar said. "We change the plan. We all go together. We fight to the reactor room and hold it while we set charges for remote detonation. It's still dangerous, but we all have a chance." Day looked surprised. Then he nodded. "All right. Together, then." They prepared for the breach. Su rigged explosives to blow open the sealed door to the reactor level. Jin positioned himself at point with his heavy weapon. The Kryn warriors formed up around the humans. For the first time, they were not leading. They were fighting as one unit. The door exploded. They rushed through into hell. Creatures came from every direction. The corridor was thick with them. Jin's weapon roared, cutting down the closest ones. The Kryn warriors used their strength to hold the sides. The humans filled the gaps with precise fire. A creature grabbed Su and started dragging her away. Jin did not hesitate. He dropped his heavy weapon and dove into a mass of claws and teeth. He grabbed Su and pulled her back. Both of them came out bleeding but alive and still fighting. They pushed forward step by terrible step. Every meter cost blood. A Kryn warrior fell. A human went down. But they kept moving. Yuna reached the reactor controls. Her hands flew over the ancient systems. 3 minutes, she shouted. "I need 3 minutes to set the charges." They held. They formed a circle around Yuna and they held that ground. Velthar fought beside Wu. The old human's face was covered in blood from a cut on his forehead, but his aim never wavered. Hana's weapon clicked empty, and she switched to a blade without missing a beat. Tay was dragging wounded to the center of the circle while shooting at creatures with his other hand. "Done!" Yuna yelled. "Charges set! 3 minutes to detonation! Move!" The run back was a nightmare. Creatures chased them. One grabbed a Kryn warrior and pulled him into the mass. He was gone. A human named June held a doorway so others could pass through. He fired until his weapon overheated, and then he used it as a club. "Go!" he screamed. "I'll hold them." They went. June did not follow. The door sealed behind them. They made it to the boarding ship with 30 seconds to spare. The engines fired and they pulled away from the warship. Behind them, the reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the darkness like a new sun. Inside the ship, Everyone was silent. They had lost 2 Kryn warriors and 1 human. June's sacrifice had saved them all. Day sat with his head in his hands. Hana was crying quietly. Tay was shaking again, but this time from exhaustion and grief, not fear. Velthar looked at his own warriors. They were the best of the Kryn, trained from birth, fearless and strong. But they had needed the humans to survive. The small, scared humans who cried after battles and carried their fear like a weight. He finally understood. The Kryn fought to win. Humans fought even when winning was impossible. The Kryn were brave. Humans were something beyond brave. They were determined in a way that defied logic, and that determination was more powerful than any strength. 2 months later, everything changed. The Macron hierarchy came. They were a species that conquered other worlds. They were ruthless and efficient. They had massive armies and powerful weapons. When they arrived at the border of Coalition space, they did not ask for peace. They just attacked. The first 3 Coalition fleets that went to fight them were destroyed. Completely. The Macron did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They killed everything in their path and took the resources they wanted. Now they were coming for Kepler Station. It was a major supply hub that supported dozens of colonies. If Kepler fell, the entire sector would collapse. The Coalition sent everything they had. 3 fleets, 50,000 troops. Every available soldier was deployed to defend the station. Velthar was there with his Kryn warriors. The humans were there too. Captain Day now commanded 500 human soldiers, a full battalion. They had proven themselves in battle after battle. The other species respected them now. The Macron arrived with twice as many ships and 3 times as many soldiers. Their fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately began attacking. No warnings, no demands, just violence. The battle was chaos from the first minute. Macron soldiers poured onto the station from multiple breach points. They used weapons that the Coalition had never seen before, chemical gases that burned through armor, biological agents that made soldiers sick. They were vicious and experienced, and they did not care about their own casualties. The Coalition forces fought hard. The Kryn held the main corridors. The Vrel defended the command center. The Drexians protected the civilian sectors. Everyone gave everything they had. It was not enough. The Macron were winning. Velthar watched the battle reports on his command screen. Sector after sector was falling. The Macron were pushing deeper into the station. They were getting closer to the civilian areas where families lived, where children were hiding in shelters. He switched to the human communication channel. Something was different. The humans were still fighting, still holding their positions. But they were quiet. The usual chatter was gone. The occasional jokes had stopped. Day's voice on the command channel was cold and hard. Then the Macron reached the civilian sector. Velthar saw it on his monitor. The enemy soldiers were executing non-combatants. They were killing people who could not fight back, families, children. The Macron did not care. The human communication channel went completely silent for 5 seconds. Then Hana's voice came through, quiet and terrifying in its calmness. "Command, requesting weapons release protocol override." Velthar did not understand. "What protocol?" Day responded immediately. "Granted. All units. Full authorization. No restrictions." "Acknowledged," came the responses from the human soldiers. There was something in their voices now, something that made Velthar's skin go cold. The humans changed. Velthar watched through the station's security cameras. The human soldiers who had fought with courage and discipline became something else, something primal and unstoppable. Wu stopped using cover. He walked through enemy fire like it did not exist. Bullets hit his armor. He did not slow down. He moved through the Macron positions like a machine, shooting with mechanical precision. A plasma bolt caught him in the leg. He went down on one knee, shot 3 more enemies, and stood back up. He did not stop. Sue was not using her explosives to disable equipment anymore. She collapsed an entire corridor, burying 200 Macron soldiers in rubble. When another enemy unit tried to advance through a different passage, she sealed them in and vented the atmosphere. They suffocated. Jin's heavy weapon never stopped firing. The barrel turned red from heat. He switched to a second weapon and kept going. When that overheated, he picked up a Macron weapon and used that. He did not slow down. He did not take breaks. He just kept killing. Yuna hacked the station's systems and started using them as weapons. Life support shut down in enemy-held sections. Emergency bulkheads trapped Macron units. She turned the station itself into a weapon against them. Day led from the front now. His unit was not defending anymore. They were hunting. They pushed into Macron territory. When they met resistance, they did not stop to fight tactically. They overwhelmed it with brutal efficiency and kept moving. Day's face on the camera feeds was hard and cold. This was not the calm commander anymore. This was something else. Velthar saw Tay, the gentle medic who had comforted a frightened Kryn warrior, stab a Macron soldier with a combat knife. Then another. Then another. The young human's hands were shaking. Tears ran down his face, but he did not stop. His medical training meant he knew exactly where to strike to kill quickly. This was what humans became when you threatened what they protected. The Macrons started to retreat. Not because they were losing the overall battle. They still had more soldiers. They still had better positions in some sectors. They retreated because the humans terrified them. Velthar intercepted a Macron communication. Their commander was calling for withdrawal. "These are not soldiers," the alien said, fear clear in its voice. "These are demons. Fall back. Fall back now." The battle turned. With the Macron retreating from the human sectors, the coalition forces rallied. The Kryn pushed forward. The Vrel reclaimed lost ground. Within 2 hours, the Macron were fleeing the station entirely. Their ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. Kepler Station was saved. The cost had been terrible, but they had won. Velthar walked through the station after the battle. The damage was enormous. Fires still burned in some sections. Medical teams rushed everywhere. The dead were being collected and identified. He found the human soldiers sitting in one of the damaged corridors. They looked different now. The savage efficiency was gone. They looked like the humans he knew again. But something had changed. Hana sat against a wall with her weapon beside her. She was crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, shaking sobs. Other humans sat nearby in similar states. Some were staring at nothing. Some had their heads in their hands. Tay was shaking worse than Velthar had ever seen. Wu sat very still, looking at his hands like he did not recognize them. Velthar approached Captain Day. The human officer looked old now, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "What happened to you?" Velthar asked quietly. "What did I see out there?" Day was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "We stopped holding back." "Holding back? That was you holding back before?" "We trained to fight with honor," Day said, "with rules, with restraint, because we know what we're capable of without those things." He gestured at his soldiers. "This is what we become when someone murders children. This is what humans are when you take away the rules we built to contain ourselves." Velthar looked at Hana, still crying, at Tai, still shaking, at all of them, dealing with what they had done. "They are in pain," Velthar said. "Yes," Day agreed, "because they're still human. Because what we did out there, what we're capable of, it costs us something. We don't become monsters without paying a price. But you won. You saved the station." "We did," Day said, "and we'll carry what we did today for the rest of our lives. Every one of us will remember. Every one of us will have nightmares. But we did it anyway, because people needed us to." Velthar finally understood the fear he had been feeling. He was not afraid of humans because they were strong. He was afraid because they were not. They were fragile and mortal and terrified. But they won anyway. They became whatever they needed to become to protect others, even if it destroyed them inside. The Kryn were warriors. They fought with honor and skill. Humans were survivors, and survivors would do absolutely anything to protect what they loved, no matter the cost to themselves. That night, Velthar sat alone and thought about what he had witnessed. The galaxy had many warrior species, beings who were stronger, faster, more durable than humans. But none of them had what humans had. That terrible determination, that willingness to become monsters, to fight monsters, that ability to carry the weight of what they had done and keep going. He finally understood why he felt fear when fighting alongside humans, because they showed him what true strength was, and it was terrifying. 3 weeks after the battle at Kepler Station, the war continued. The Macron hierarchy was retreating, but still fighting. The coalition forces pushed forward, liberating occupied worlds. Velthar had watched the humans carefully during this time. They were different now. They still joked sometimes. They still took care of each other. But there was a weight to them that had not been there before. They carried what they had done at Kepler like a heavy burden. Velthar had requested permanent assignment to human units. He was no longer observing them for a report. He was learning from them. They taught him things his long military career had never shown him. Fear was not weakness. It was information about danger. Sacrifice was not glorious. It was necessary and painful. Crying after battle did not mean failure. It meant you still valued life, even after taking it. One evening, Velthar found Hana in the observation deck of their ship. She was staring out at the stars, her reflection visible in the window. She looked tired. "Do you regret it?" Velthar asked. "What you did at Kepler?" Hana was quiet for a long time. The stars moved slowly past the window. Finally, she spoke. "Every day, every single day I think about it." "Then why did you do it?" "Because regretting it means I still have a conscience," she said softly. "The day I stop feeling bad about taking a life is the day I become like the Macron. We do terrible things sometimes, Velthar. We're capable of real horrors, but we choose to feel guilty about it. We choose to carry that weight. That's what makes us different from the monsters." Velthar sat down beside her. In the months since they met, he had grown to respect these humans more than any species he had known, not because they were strong, but because they were weak and fought anyway, because they were scared and continued, because they were broken and kept going. "I completed my report on humans," Velthar said. "Would you like to know what I wrote?" "Sure," Hana said. "I wrote that humans are not the strongest species, not the fastest or the most durable. You do not have the best technology or the most advanced weapons." He paused. "But you have something more valuable. You endure. You endure fear and fight anyway. You endure pain and keep moving. You endure loss and continue to care. You endure the weight of your own terrible actions and choose to remain moral beings." Hana smiled a little. "That's a nicer report than I expected. I also wrote that to fight alongside humans is to feel fear constantly. Fear of what we face. Fear of what you might become. Fear of what I might become fighting beside you." Velthar looked at his own reflection in the window. "But I have never felt more alive, more purposeful, more human." The next day, Coalition Command contacted Velthar. They offered him a position in Kryn's Strategic Command. It was a major promotion, a return to his own people, a prestigious role that any Kryn warrior would want. He declined. Captain Day's unit was being deployed to liberate planets held by the Macron. They would be landing on occupied worlds, fighting to free civilians who had suffered under enemy rule. It would be brutal. It would be dangerous. There would be more terrible decisions and more weight to carry. Velthar requested to join them. Day looked surprised when Velthar told him. "Are you sure? This is going to be hard, not just the fighting. The things we'll see, the things we'll have to do." "I know," Velthar said. "That is why you need someone watching your back. Someone to remind you who you are when the fighting is done. Someone to help you carry the weight." Wu, who was standing nearby, nodded slowly. "He's learning." The other humans welcomed Velthar to their unit officially. Hana gave him one of their unit patches. Tai showed him how they prepared their equipment before missions. Yuna taught him some of their hand signals. Jin shared his rations, which tasted terrible, but was apparently a sign of friendship. For the first time in his long military career, Velthar felt like he belonged somewhere. The day came for deployment. The transport ship carried the combined unit toward their next mission. It was a world called Barros III. The Macron had occupied it for 2 months. Intelligence said they were using the population as forced labor and worse. Velthar sat among the humans as the ship flew through space. He watched them prepare in their own ways. Tay was shaking again, fear before combat. But Velthar understood now. He sat beside the young medic and said nothing, just sat with him. Tay looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "Sergeant Wu taught me this," Velthar explained. "Sometimes we just need to know we are not alone." Across the cargo bay, the familiar rituals played out. Hana stripped and cleaned her weapon with practiced hands. Yuna had her music playing through her earpiece. Day was writing in his journal. Wu sat very still, preparing his mind, each of them carrying their fear in their own way, each of them dealing with what was coming. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Barros III appeared in the view screen. It was a green and blue planet, beautiful from orbit. But Velthar knew what was happening on the surface. Suffering, cruelty, people waiting for rescue. The alarm sounded. 5 minutes to landing. The humans stood and checked their weapons one final time. Velthar did the same. His hands were steady, but he could feel it. That flutter in his chest, that awareness of danger, fear. He did not fight it. He acknowledged it and let it settle. The fear meant he understood the stakes. It meant he still valued life. Captain Day walked through the cargo bay, checking on his soldiers. When he reached Velthar, he stopped. "You ready?" Day asked. Velthar checked his weapon. He thought about the humans he had fought beside, the ones who carried their fear and their guilt and their humanity like weights, but never let those weights stop them. The ones who became whatever they needed to be to protect others, then paid the price for it afterward. He thought about June, who had held a door so others could escape. About all the humans who had been wounded or killed fighting for people they did not know. About Hana crying after battle because she still had a conscience. About Tay shaking with fear but going anyway. About Wu walking through fire because it was the job. About Day writing in his journal to remember who he was. "Yes," Velthar said. "Let us bring them home." The ship entered the atmosphere. The landing zone was hot. Enemy fire was already hitting the hull. The cargo door would open in 30 seconds and they would run into battle. Maybe some of them would die. Probably they would have to do terrible things. Certainly they would carry the weight of this day for the rest of their lives. But they would do it anyway. Because people needed help. Because that was what humans did. And Velthar had learned to be a little bit human himself. The door opened. Light flooded the cargo bay. The sound of battle rushed in. Velthar could see the landing zone ahead, filled with danger and fear and the promise of pain. The humans ran forward without hesitation. Velthar ran with them. He had spent 3,000 years as a Kryn warrior, fearless and proud. He had won countless battles through strength and skill. But only now, running into danger beside these small, scared, determined humans, did he finally understand what true courage was. It was not the absence of fear. It was carrying fear and moving forward anyway. It was being terrified and doing it anyway. It was being broken and continuing anyway. The humans had taught him that. And now, as plasma fire filled the air and enemy soldiers appeared ahead, Velthar felt something he had never felt before. He felt afraid, and he felt alive, and he felt ready. Together they ran toward the battle, the Kryn warrior and the humans who had shown him what it meant to truly fight for something. Not for glory or honor or pride, but for people who needed help, for those who could not fight for themselves, for the simple, terrifying, beautiful idea that everyone deserved to be protected. That was worth carrying the fear. That was worth carrying the weight. That was worth everything. Velthar raised his weapon and followed his team into the chaos. He did not know if they would all survive. He did not know what horrors they would face or what prices they would pay. But he knew they would face it together, and that made all the difference.